On this side would be a mirror image of this. This thing would continue. The same thing you see here, you would see here. All right? So, here's what you have to picture. First of all, these brown things are all hepatic cells, hepatocytes they're called. And they're remarkable in that they carry on a tremendous number of functions for us. And they are amongst the simplest types of cells in our body. You can, in experimental surgery procedures with dogs, for instance, they've removed as much as 90% of an animal's liver, and if they manage to keep it alive long enough, it grows back. Not in exactly the same shape. It looks different, doesn't have the same number of lobes and so on, but the function returns 100%. So this is an organ that easily regenerates itself. The problem is that either due to hepatitis C or due to heavy drinking, it gets cirrhosed. Cirrhosis of the liver means scar tissue replaces the hepatic tissue, and then you can't bring it back. So we've got here the hepatocytes, and these tiny green channels that you see in cross-section here and in longitudinal section here, these tiny green channels are carrying bile. Anything green carries bile, okay? And they are called the little minute channels for bile, Latin bile canaliculi, bile canaliculi, okay? It's on the list, bile canaliculi, okay? So any of these things here labeled bile canaliculi. Ultimately, of course, they move into bigger and bigger channels, and we finally get this thing over here, which is a bile duct that's going to ultimately become either, I don't know where this logo is from, ultimately it will lead into either the right or the left hepatic duct. Right? So, this vessel here comes from the hepatic portal vein, and this vessel comes from the hepatic artery. Now, the hepatic artery is relatively small for such a big organ. All it really has to deliver is oxygen, because nutrients are coming from the hepatic portal vein, which is bringing in blood from the guts, right? So all the nutrients are coming in via this big vein. So this relatively thin, small artery only has to supply the oxygen that's needed for metabolic purposes. The hepatic portal vein doesn't branch into smaller and smaller veins. You know, veins don't do that. Veins, you know, get bigger and bigger as they move towards the vena cava. Okay? So these veins coming from the vessels that drain the hepatic portal vein empty into these very thin-walled, large vessels that are called hepatic sinuses. So the hepatocytes surround these hepatic sinuses. They're not veins, they're thinner walled than veins, they're not capillaries, they're sinuses. So they're called hepatic sinuses. So any of these things would be called hepatic sinus. And they're so thin walled that they need support to prevent them from collapsing. So we have these fibers here. What's it called on your list? Reticular fibers. Okay. Lining the inside of the sinuses are Kupfer cells, K-U-P-F, two F's? Yes. Yeah, F-F-E-R. The U has an umlaut over it, don't forget. These Kupfer cells are stationary phagocytic cells. That means they don't wander around, but they phagocytize bacteria, debris, and so on that comes down the pike. And I think I told you last time how what happens during the last trimester of a pregnancy in respect to this stuff. Did I not? Mm-hmm. During the last trimester of a pregnancy, any bacteria coming in from the gut of the pregnant woman, which get picked up, which get phagocytized by these Kupfer cells, it kills the bacteria and then sends them on with presenter cells to the lymph nodes in the breast, and antibodies are produced which gets incorporated into the colostrum in the milk against the mother's intestinal bacteria. So that when she wipes herself, any bacteria under her nails, which then get in contact with the baby, you could see how that would happen back in caveman days, right? The baby will be protected against the mother's very own bacteria through the colostrum and milk that it's drinking. We're made remarkably well. Okay, so the blood passes through these sinuses and empties into this central vein. As you see, it receives these sinuses from all over the place, on this side and on this side, above it, below. Central vein. Okay? The central vein ultimately will lead to the right or left, depending upon where this is located, right or left hepatic vein, which empties into the inferior vena cava.
Where's the central vein?
Right here. So the blood passageway is from the elements of the hepatic portal system and hepatic artery to the central vein, and then leaves the... Now, the place where the arteries here meet the sinuses without benefit of capillaries in between, kind of a unique setup. That's called an anastomosis, an arteriovenous anastomosis. So that's a place where arterial blood empties into venous blood without benefit of capillaries in between. Make sure you spell anastomosis right. Finito. Next.